pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ready, cut, order, fellas. Ready, cut, right, straight, forward, arch.
We'd like to thank the Stafford High School's Navy JROTC for presenting our colors this evening. The color guard cadets are Cadet Gallagher, Cadet Osborne, Cadet Owens, Cadet Tremblay, with instructor Cadet Brown, and the instructors at the program at Stafford High School are Lieutenant Commander Felix Martinez and Senior Chief Sky Shaw. Do we have a motion for approval of the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Somewhere down there, Madam Clerk, we got it first, but Ms. Egan was the second. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Brings us to citizen comments. All right, speakers wishing to comment at this time may do so by responding to the general invitation of the chairman, and that will be after Lester Gabriel comes to speak, because that's the only person who signed up. Speakers shall identify themselves by name, address, and organizational affiliation if the spokesperson represents an organization. Speakers shall also announce the purpose of their comments. 3 minutes shall be allotted to speakers, and the chairman reserves the right to restrict the total citizen comment received at any particular meeting to a predetermined maximum number of minutes with the approval of the board. Citizen comment which is profane, abusive, or which threatens imminent physical harm shall be ruled out of order. Although the board provides the opportunity for citizen comment, individuals desiring to register complaints against division employees or division program services or activities may also utilize the procedures outlined in Stafford County Public School Policy 1113, public comments. So we'll have Lester Gabriel first, and then after Mr. Gabriel, if anyone wants to speak, please line up on either side and come on down. And when we're finished, we'll just close it up. If you do speak after Mr. Gabriel, there's a sign-in sheet on the ledge there that will need you to sign your name and address, please. Mr. Gabriel.
Yes, thank you. My name's Lester Gabriel. I live at 86 Smithfield Way. There's been a lot of talk and some action at the national and state levels regarding school safety and security, but it is basically a county level situation, and I just would encourage you to do everything you can. I've done some research online, and there are a lot of school safety guidelines that have been put out by numerous organizations over the last 10, 15 years, going all the way back to Columbine. And so I hope that we are doing everything that we possibly can to keep our children safe and secure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gabriel. Is there anyone else who'd like to address the board? Mr. Hayes, come on down. Anyone who want to speak to the board after Mr. Hayes, please line up.
Good evening, school board members and Madam Chair, Superintendent. I'll make this as brief as possible. When I was looking over the agenda, there was just a concern that we have from the EA, and that is that we have been following the budget so far between the two boards at the Board of Supervisors and with your proposed budget from the superintendent and from your budget. Our concern is with a couple items that are going on now, one of which the man that just spoke was safety. Our concern is that we might be overreaching at this point on budget proposals going into what looks like a really tight budget again this year based on what the Board of Supervisors is telling us and what they're telling you all. Our concern would be that the school board is not going to be fully funded again this year. That's a huge concern, and that we're going to be facing more and more cuts at this time in another month or two. The state assembly has not passed their proposed their budget yet. The Board of Supervisors has not made a decision on the tax revenues for this year, and the concern of the safety and the shootings in the schools now has put new pressures on the school system to possibly pay for more and more security, while our needs in the school system continue to grow outside of security. Our number one concern is the security of the students. There's no doubt, and the teachers and the employees. There's no doubt that that is the number one concern, except that we can't continue to overextend and then say later on that we can afford to do these things at the expense of what we're doing inside the classroom, outside the classroom, and in our communities. So with a couple of the things you're going to consider tonight, the Summer Institute, as much as we would hate to see something like that, a professional development, those are the things that we worry about that could possibly put us in a position of saying picking and choosing again. We just can't afford to do that and continue to raise our expectations of our students and our employees. So I said I was going to be brief, so I'll end it now. Just please consider possibly that we look at some of these things without making a rash judgment too soon before the Board of Supervisors tells us what we have to work with. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes, and you know the drill to sign in. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board?
First time here. Come here periodically. Come here periodically. Paul Waldowski, 8 Pickett Lane. Greetings. I was really going to be at the Utility Commissioners, and I just know you love for me to come here, you know. It's just amazing. But I'm here to inform the public that March 15th is your chance to appeal your tax assessment. I think that's very important. You need to look in the real estate appraisal system. I'll educate you on how to do that. You can reach me at yhavehoas@gmail.com. Check on the acreage in your county records. If it says 0.0000, like mine did, and then they compare your property with something else that has acres of 0.0000. Mathematically, that means garbage in, garbage out. Inaccurate data results in inaccurate data. Einstein's my favorite scientist because he defined insanity. You know, you do the same thing for 30 years and you expect different results. Almost like teaching. It's amazing. Now, let's see, what else? How much time do I have? I have a minute and 30 seconds. I came here unprepared. I just have a hard time speaking for 3 minutes, you know, because I've got nothing to say. But Mr. Superintendent, I informed the Board of Supervisors that you're a citizen, so I don't mind you come giving presentations, but I want to give my 3 minutes before yours because I can watch it on TV. And anyway, I go to so many forums. I love your presentations. They're pretty informative. If you all go online today, there's 36 pages of a budget review that was done this afternoon. It's quite enlightening to look at the PowerPoint slide presentation, foils by death. I used to do a lot of those, Senators used to ask me, is the glass full, Mr. Waldowski, or half empty? It depends if you're in a three-way election. If you get less than 40% of the vote, you never know. Oh, you might become vice chairman someday.
Whitowski.
Hey, man.
Love you, though.
Remember, Army's a four-letter word. So is flag. So is USAF. My father used to say USMC is the best four-letter word. I reminded him that USMC was the men's department of the U.S. Navy.
Mr. Waldowski, if you wouldn't mind signing in, we'd appreciate it. Is there anyone else who'd like to address the board?
Kristen Kanu, 7 Crimson Way. I don't really know how I follow that. But I was just coming as a parent of 2 children who are in elementary school. And once again, just speaking about the security at our schools, I do believe that that is of utmost importance. And I'm not going to pretend to know that I know finances or budget, because I don't. I know the numbers aren't adding up. But with that being an extremely important consideration, I don't want that to impact the raises for our teachers. I don't believe that that is where any money should be cut. The education of our kids relies on the teachers. And so to cut that not only tells our teachers, you know what, you're not really all that important. And tells the parents, your kids really are not all that important. So I just implore you to not only the security, but the raises for the teachers. And that perhaps we can look at other budget items. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else like to address the board? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period and come to the board. Mr. McOsker, do we have any student discipline committee reports?
Yes, ma'am. On 15 February 2018, the committee of the school board met to consider 3 student disciplinary matters. The committee did not consider the matter of student A due to a parent having withdrawn the appeal. 2, student B, and permitted the student to expelled student B and permitted the student to attend the Regional Alternative Education Program, and suspended student C for 25 days with the Regional Alternative Education Program offered.
Thank you, Mr. McOsker. That brings us to board member comments. We'll start with Ms. Egan this evening.
The only thing that I'm going to apologize for at this point is I'm going to have to leave early tonight. My son had a little accident yesterday and at school, and he's going to be in a wheelchair for a little while. Nothing. I mean, he's going to walk, but he's home right now, waiting for me to go home and serve him dinner. So by 8 o'clock, I should be out of here. So I apologize for. I know we have a closed session afterwards, so if we can move it up, I'll be glad to participate. But if I have to excuse myself, that's why. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you being with us. I know it's hard. Dr. Chase.
Sure. Yeah. First, I have heard a lot of concerns about Gale Middle School over the last couple of weeks, but I'd like to share some really good news. Gale's math counts team came in second at the division-wide competition on February 17th, and I wonder if we might invite the team and their coach, Amy Kelly, to a future school board meeting for recognition. I attended math counts division competitions for 9 years, and Stafford never had a team do better than 5th place. So I thought that was pretty good. I also wanted to commend our elementary school chorus teachers. I attended all district chorus concert on February 24th at Stafford High School, and our students were amazing. I was also delighted to be invited to Mrs. Colson's first grade class at Conway Elementary for Read Across America. I was so impressed with the class. The students were attentive and engaged. They had lots of really great questions, and I enjoyed seeing how Mrs. Colson is incorporating wellness into her instruction. I also visited Hampton Oaks last week with Dr. Benson and Ms. Young, and yesterday Ms. Young and I were able to visit autism classes at Anthony Burns Elementary and Rodney Thompson Middle. And I just wanted to say we have some amazing work being done in our autism classes. Finally, I want to thank Chris Fulmer, Chief of Finance, and his staff for sitting down with Ms. Young and me and answering our many, many questions about the budget. I know the public had concerns about Stafford County Schools' finances 2 years ago, so it was great to see the new Munis financial software in action. 10 years ago, it was very time-consuming to get fairly basic questions about finance answered, and when answers were provided, there were sometimes errors. The new system is much more efficient and hopefully will be much less prone to human error. And that's all I've got.
Thank you, Dr. Chase. Mr. McOsker? No? Ms. Young?
Okay. A letter, oops, I was told wasn't on. Good evening, everyone. A letter went out to parents about the water sampling reports that show that there are fixtures that are producing elevated levels of lead above the EPA standard threshold of 15 ppm, parts per million. I hope to receive the one-page report requested from O&M, Operations and Maintenance, and would like to be kept abreast when the third round of testing is conducted and the results are made available. We were at Head Start yesterday with my fellow school board members, serving little people and their parents, and with the supervisors, of course, and we made a lot of new friends, and I practiced my Spanish. I offer to help young ones with tutoring. This is an issue that exists because English-speaking parents can help their students, but Spanish-speaking parents that don't speak and understand English cannot. I'll be looking into this to see how we can help those students with tutoring and bridge this gap. I was at the listening tour at North Stafford. This was held in the beautiful library. I hope that we can expand the library and include the area where the lockers reside. It's a possible hazard, not you, Ms. Hazard, in addition to an eyesore, and we need to make good use of our space. The theme of the night surrounded around safety, although I shared updates about equity and diversity. I brought up again the fact that resource officers can help keeping our students safe, but we also need to look into mental state of some of our students and that we need to address their mental health. We need to reduce anxiety of students and teachers and employ additional social workers and counselors. I will be talking to Dr. Benson about input I received from some of you that states that mental health plays a big part in how at-risk youth can become a potential threat, and we need to improve intervention and education about mental health issues in our community. On Thursday, March the 8th, I supported my fellow school board members, Dwayne McOsker, at his town hall at Ferry Farm. Parents as well as citizens discussed building and renovation of the elementary school, and I was sure that Mr. McOsker will give us an update later, maybe. On Friday, March the 9th, Dr. Chase and I joined Dr. Benson while visiting a 4th grade history class at Hampton Oaks Elementary in Garrisonville, and the lesson plan was on taxation without representation. How fitting, as it was about no equity while settlers were paying the king but had no representation. Lesson of equity and opportunity. On Friday, I also had a visit with VDOT on the site at the very busy crossing on 610 Garrisonville Road. Getting very busy, and we need to make sure our students are safe. Mark Dudenheffer, our Garrisonville supervisor, my fellow board member, Ms. Decatur, and I are working together to accomplish this. More to come. One more. On Monday, March the 12th, my fellow school board member, Dr. Sarah Chase, and I visited the autism class of Anthony Burns, and she already went over that, so I'll skip that. And I'm also excited and happy to be working with CTE and opportunities with businesses to help our students. There are companies willing to offer internships and to give these young students opportunities to enter the workforce. So amazing. I plan to visit North Stafford's career and technical program on April the 17th. Lastly, need to ensure that we show support for the second largest employer behind GEICO, that our staff needs a raise. please show up when the school board presents to the Board of Supervisors. I think it's on March the 20th.
4:30.
4:30.
To pass our
p.m.
budget. So we need an audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Ms. Decatur.
Good evening. Want to thank all of those who came out for our listening tour. Again, as I said there, it was very heartwarming to come in slightly late and see everyone that was taking an interest in our community. I just love to see Stafford coming together to really be that community that I know that we are. Thank you to the Head Start that invites us once a year to help serve their families, but we only attend once a year. Head Start does this dinner twice a month for their families, and it's just a really, really phenomenal program that they have over there. While they are having activities with their young ones, they're also teaching their parents valuable life skills. Coming from the background that I'm in, I understand very well that when you can, in school we can only do so much to help our young ones, but when you can really get in there and help a family, that what we do with the young ones will last that much longer. And finally, I thoroughly appreciate those of you who come and speak to us on the budget. What I'd ask you to do is a little bit of homework between now and the 20th when we present the budget to the Board of Supervisors. If you were at the listening tour, my computer just went to sleep. Evidently, I'm not that exciting to listen to. If you were at the listening tour, you may have heard my explanation at the end that I feel that we have prepared a budget that, while not asking for too much, some people might laugh at me, like the supervisors, while not asking for too much, we're trying to get ahead and meet our priorities. I have a little bit of pregnancy brain. I should have written stuff down like you did. What am I trying to say? Homework. If you guys could look at the budget and what we have asked the supervisors for, and not just go over there and ask them to fully fund our budget, because we all know that we're competing for limited resources, and they have other things that are equally as important. Like I said at the listening tour, our police officers, our roads, the traffic, all of those things are very important. So that's what we will hear them almost argue as a reason why our budget won't be fully funded. So what I would ask for you to do is take a look at what we've asked for and see what things speak to you, and then go over there and talk to them about individual pieces of our budget and advocate for those individual pieces. We feel that they're all very important, but I would just ask for you to learn about the budget, and when you go over there, really, really advocate for the individual pieces, not just, and understand that they'd love to fund as much as they can as well. So I think we all understand where I'm going with that. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ms. Decatur. Ms. Hazard.
Sure. I turn myself off. Again, thank you for all those who came to the listening tour. It was wonderful to walk into and be part of a packed room for parents caring about school issues. Usually we don't ever have a crowd unless it's redistricting. So I hope we keep this engagement, which is what I said that night at the listening tour. Stay with us. Your kids are that important, and security is part of it, but also we need to be talking about our issues within the county on a broader basis. So I hope we continue to have those kinds of crowds. Most of my colleagues talked about Head Start. Most know that is a near and dear program to my heart. We did learn about the Very Hungry Caterpillar, and we had a great time with our families. And I know that Ms. Massey handed out to our Board of Supervisors. I don't know if other board members got a copy of our Head Start. I think it's the annual report. I think that's the name. But it talks about the progress of our Head Start kids when they go on to schools. It's amazing. Their numbers are in the 90 percentile at the end of kindergarten. They are very, very well prepared in that building, and it is just one of the greatest programs. One note I did want to mention about the listening tour that came up about school safety, but not necessarily school safety within our buildings, but on our roads. Specifically the passing of stopped school buses with flashing red lights when there's a stop sign. I know a smile in the back. I would really like the board to consider again requesting the Board of Supervisors support for the ability to put the cameras on the buses to allow the ticketing of people. I know that it's a two-step process. I know we can't do it alone, but it has to have the buy-in and that. I have heard more people talk about passing, and I know what I would really like to ask is the board or the superintendent to sort of, if you do sit down and talk to our bus drivers, is this really happening more often? Because things I'm seeing, it seems that it is, and someday it's going to be a tragedy. If you pass on Poplar Road, which I see people do all the time, someday it's not going to end in a way, and I don't want to see that tragedy. So I would just like us to at least explore or find out. I know, again, that's a cost item, but I really would like us just to get some information on that ability. I would like us, as we sort of wait to hear from our Board of Supervisors on the amount that's coming, is for us maybe to look again at our program evaluation and maybe scheduling a work session, because I have a feeling come April, May, we're going to be focused on budget. I don't want to miss our opportunity to talk about the program evaluation work. And then my last one, everybody knows I'm going to get growth somewhere. I'd just like to point out that perhaps Stafford could learn from our neighboring county to the north. I don't usually always say that. Prince William County, on August 29th, 2016, Colgan High School opened in Prince William County. I would like to tell you that in February of this year, their planning commission approved the site for their next high school in Prince William County. That is what I call planning, and I wish Stafford County could have the similar foresight. I will say I had great confidence in this joint CIP process as a vehicle to accomplish similar planning for the future. I really hope that at this meeting on the 20th or at some meeting that comes that we can begin to plan like that. Colgan was built and opened in 2016, and less than 2 years later, they are already planning and picking a site, approving it for their next high school. We need to be on that same growth curve. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hazard. I want to echo my colleagues' comments about the listening tour. It was a wonderful program, and I want to thank Ms. Cherie Johnson, because there's so much work that goes into making everything run so smoothly, and we appreciate it, and also your follow-up after that with the questions. There were so many people and so many questions, there wasn't enough time to address them all, and she's working on getting those answers now. And also, of course, Dr. Benson and all the staff that were there to help respond to the questions. It takes a lot to add at the end of your day, and I think our staffs have very long days very often. And also to Sheriff Decatur, who was a wonderful addition to the listening tour. There was a very persistent theme about safety and security, which of course is our number one priority for our staff and our students. And Sheriff Decatur was there to help answer questions, I think allay some fears, and show that this really is a partnership between the Sheriff's Office, Stafford County, and Stafford County Public Schools. And he has put together a task force, which our school has a very large presence on, and it has county community members, schools, and we'll be hearing more of that as we move forward. And of course, thank you to North Stafford. As Ms. Young said, we were able to enjoy the beautiful new library which was built, and heard reports from the staff there how much the students are just there all the time. I mean, they said there used to be maybe a dozen or couple dozen students. Now there are hundreds of students who use that library before and after school and all day long. So, yeah, thank you to the school board. Ms. Young, I think we'll be hearing more from you, and I'm right with you. If we can find some more money to expand that, take those lockers out, which nobody uses, that'd be terrific. Finally, I want to recognize Mrs. Baumke, Mr. Cohen, and Mr. Dudenheffer for coming to our dinner last night, helping us serve. And I think Mr. Dudenheffer wins the award for being the most interested. Somebody said, you can tell he's a grandfather because he was just
vegetables to the kids.
You could not, yes, that's right. He was trying to serve asparagus and squash to the little ones. He did try. They did take the broccoli, but when that ran out, he was pushing the other veggies, and he was great. But to watch them sing and do their shows, I mean, we have some potential performers there too. And I got a chance to talk to some of the Head Start staff and just talk about the value of that program, how much we've accomplished over the years, but also to talk about how it would be wonderful if we could expand it, because we have a waiting list for the Head Start program. We have so much wealth in Stafford County, but we have so much need as well. And while the program serves, several hundred students, there are many, many more that are on the list that qualify, but there just are not seats available in the school. So maybe one day, and Mrs. Massey always gets kudos because she does an amazing job of getting funding for that program from the federal government. I mean, the roof was leaking, and Mrs. Massey got a grant to fix the roof. Mrs. Massey got us school buses. We struggled to buy new school buses, and she got funding for school buses for Head Start. So she's our best advocate, for the school. Well, enough from me. Your turn, Dr. Benson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to share a follow-up of these classroom visits in the last few weeks, because they really have been incredible, and just stay reminded that the experience that our young people are having all across this division is really incredible. We've got teachers that are doing just a fantastic job, including Ms. Kendra Doyer at Hampton Oaks, which is the class that we visited this past week, and they were doing taxation without representation. It was quite an interesting simulation. I got to play King George III, and something that perhaps the board would like to do, I got to levy taxes. And it was really quite the experience, and the kids really did an incredible job. A shout out to Parker, who led essentially the two Continental Congresses and pretty much put King George in his place, and it was really, really well done. And one of the parents knew that we were coming, and she made bow ties for all of the boys in the school colors, and then hair bows for the girls. And we walked in, I'm like, oh my gosh, just melt my heart. Just what a wonderful place to be. So, and then I also had an opportunity to co-teach a lesson on matter at Hampton Oaks Elementary School with Mr. Bruce Tams. A great experience. Mr. Tams has a class that has some English language learners in it, and he moves very easily out of English and Spanish. And working with students, it was an incredible experience. And then finally, I was with Miss Beth Halterman, second grade at Rock Hill. They were wrapping up a unit on the Underground Railroad, and students were writing reflective pieces about the person that they most admired that they had studied. But one of the things that's really interesting about each one of the students in their classes that they have a scientific name that they identified for themselves. And it really is a kind of a motivational, inspirational thing that they call themselves. And so they shared all of their scientific names with me, and I was like, well, I don't have one. That's kind of bad. It's sad, So following my visit, I got a poster from the kids and a card from Ms. Halterman. They had gone through a number of potential names for me and came up with one, which I wrote about on my blog. So I'm not gonna talk about that. But if you're interested in seeing what they came up with, it's posted on my blog today. So yes, so that concludes my remarks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Benson. Do we have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the personnel report and consent.
Motion by Mrs. Hazard. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Egan. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Brings us to our action items. 8.01, approve the superintendent's proposed tuition fees in accordance with policy 5703, tuition fees for non-resident students. Now recall, this was on for information at the last meeting. This is only for students who are placed in Stafford County Public Schools by outside of the state agencies. And it will not apply to students that are placed here under a adoption plan. So if someone in Stafford County has a plan to adopt a child or more than one child, and that child is placed by an out-of-state agency in Stafford County Public Schools, there will not be a charge. That's correct, is it not? That's
correct.
Dr. Benson? Okay, are there any questions about this policy? Approval? No? Do we have a motion?
To approve the superintendent's-
Motion to approve by Ms. Young. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Hazard. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right, 8.02, this was on for information last month as well. Adopt a resolution authorizing an application to the Virginia Public School Authority for the sale of bonds in an amount not to exceed $9,875,000, with the objective of providing net proceeds of $9,405,000 for the 2018 spring pool. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve 8.02.
Motion by Ms. Egan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Hazard. Any discussion? No, this money is going for, primarily for Moncure Elementary, the construction, and there is an additional sum for Rock Hill and Garrisonville for interior renovations, which has been on the approved list for several years. All right, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. 8.03, adopt a resolution requesting the Stafford County Board of Supervisors add additional school resource officers with the goal of having one full-time SRO at each location. We discussed this last meeting but did not get finished with it. It's on here for action for purposes of discussion, possibly for approval, but do we have a motion so we can discuss this?
Move to approve?
Motion by Mr. Decatur. Do we have a second?
McOsker.
Oh, jeez.
Whoever you are.
Sorry, Jamie.
Shouldn't that be sorry, Dwayne?
Second.
No. Mr. McOsker, how could I? Whatever.
Second.
That was Ms. Egan that seconded Mr. McOsker's, Madam Clerk. All right, now.
thank you,
All right, we have a
Ms.
motion
Egan.
and a second. Do we have any discussion on this resolution?
I've been getting beat up on this side, so at least Ms. Egan's helping me on this side.
All right, any discussion? Ms. Hazard?
I'll just take one.
Okay.
I appreciate us saying that the presence of the school resource officer as one of the most important. We are having a sheriff's task force that's going to study this, so I actually hope and don't know how we're going to have that presentation done for the board or for both boards about security. So I hope this is sort of step one or piece one, but really, if the sheriff's office comes in with other things, I hope we will re-examine whatever is brought to us. I believe this is a very important piece, but I will be waiting as well for the results of the task force for further, long-term.
Any other?
I'll probably
Mr.
just
McOsker.
yes. I'll probably just chime in very quickly since kind of the same thing I said at the listening tour about the safety and security. This thing is kind of a package. It's kind of a thing that we have to do in phases. And the first phase which is ongoing, which has been ongoing, is we have a valid plan. We have a security plan. We have security officers. We have things that are going on in the schools, from the checking of the ideas to the A-phones, those physical security devices, and then we have practice. We must practice what the plans are, and we're doing that. So that's the first thing that you can do immediately. The second thing that I think is the school resource officers is the next thing that should come along, and that's. And what I said at the listening tour is, when we talk about school security, are we really talking about little Johnny's or little Jane's wallet being stolen? Really? Is that what we're terrified of? No, we're terrified of an active shooter to come into school and kill our babies. That's what we're scared of, right? And that's what's been happening, right? So that's something that the law enforcement officer, a sworn officer, as Ms. Egan said last time, right, with a badge and a gun, that can stop. While the teachers are locking the doors, the badge and the gun moves towards the offender and neutralizes that person, right? That's the second phase. And then the third phase is that stuff that a lot of the board members here, Ms. Chase, Ms. Decatur, Ms. Young, Ms. Hazard, are talking about, is that long-term mental health evaluation. Those things that we can do about monitoring, somehow trying to, see something, say something, or see something, do something. Those type of things, that's a little bit longer term that we kind of really as a nation got to try to get a hold of. And I think if we start doing these three things in Stafford, we're going to be so far ahead, because we really are in Stafford far ahead of many districts in this county. I think we're ranked number 5th for safety, and according to Niche, I don't know if that's correct, but that is correct. Okay.
That's in the Commonwealth.
In the Commonwealth only, but those things, those A phones where you show your picture, and so I just wanted to take a few minutes, because it is a very important topic to discuss that, some things that I think of, and I've talked to the board members, and they. I think this is something that is very important to us, and then this is the kind of the plan moving forward. Ms. Hazard mentioned that the sheriff will have a task force and come back with some more options. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I do just.
Ms. Decatur.
Well, because I'm kind of noticing that this is the second meeting in a row that there are no committee reports on our agenda, which may have been an oversight, and I'm not upset about it. But we might want to look at that. Is that because I'm going somewhere with this? We discussed this resolution at our 3-on-3 committee last week, and so I just think it's important to note that one of the very first questions asked when we proposed this by one of the supervisors, I believe it was Dudenheffer, and Sheriff Decatur was there. So he said, but will it help? And of course it was a much longer answer, but Sheriff Decatur at the end of the day said yes, he believes it would help. So I think that is important to mention, and also just note that we don't have committee reports. So, thank you.
Update the policy for the order of business, because it's not usually done. We are putting them on there for the first meeting of the month.
We have them once a month.
But they weren't on the.
Madam Chair?
Last week was a
Special call meeting.
Got it, okay.
Madam Chair, I would just like to note that some of the charters say specifically that we are to update the board at the next scheduled meeting of the full board as to what business was conducted. So I would like to take this opportunity to have the governance committee address that, and as Ms. Hall said, yes, we need to change that in our bylaws.
That'll fit right in with the other agenda items that you're all looking at on the governance committee as well. So thank you for bringing that to our attention, Ms. Decatur. Ms. Young, did you have anything?
I mentioned mine in my board comments.
Okay. And I just wanted to say that I'm going to be supporting this motion because when we first talked about security and what we could or should be doing in Stafford County Public Schools, Dr. Benson, came out and told us this was his #1 recommendation for safety in our schools. And, I respect his leadership and position in the schools, and knowing what I know about the school resource officers that we do have and how valuable they are. But I do want to make a point so that the community understands, even if the supervisors were to approve this and approve funding, we would not be seeing school resource officers in our schools tomorrow, probably not for months, because the sheriff has told us it's, they have to be recruited, they have to be trained. This is a long-term project. So if this does come to fruition, it will be at some point in the future, but don't get discouraged if you don't see them. Even if the funding is approved. And this funding is being requested of the supervisors to actually fund the sheriff's budget, because the school resource officers, although they're assigned to the schools, do not come under the school budget. They come under the sheriff's budget. So we have a terrific relationship with Sheriff Decatur, and I know he will work with us to do, what can be done. But that, what is here is for the school board to ask the supervisors to fund this, and what the resolution says, with the goal of having one at each school location. So, no other comments. We'll call for the question. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That brings us to information items. 9.01, approve the award of a contract with 4 one-year renewals, and those one-year renewals are optional. Correct, Dr. Benson?
Mr. Fulmer, yes.
Yes, they're optional renewals. That means we don't have to advertise the contract again. To Cherry Beckert LLP in the amount of $116,380 from budgeted FY operating funds for audit services. Now, this is here for information. We will not take action on it until the next meeting. This is the accounting firm that was recommended by the committee, correct?
Madam Chair.
Of county and school staff.
Isn't there a notation here that says, no, I'm sorry.
Not
That was 9.02. I'm
Yeah,
getting ahead of
that's the
myself.
next
I
one.
apologize.
Yeah, there's actually only one we're asked to move up tonight, so that's a good thing.
Got it.
This
I'm awake.
particular contract is actually two-part. One part is for the schools, one part is for the county. The county's part of it is going to be on their budget, on their agenda for approval at their meeting next week as well. So our approving this or making a decision on this at the March 27th meeting is going to be timely. So any questions for Mr. Fulmer about this
I just want to make sure.
contract?
I just want to make sure this is not the gentleman that was here last time doing our audit that said that he couldn't find a problem. Right? I want whoever's doing these audits to
Find
do some work
problems.
and find issues, right? It's not the same person.
It is a different audit firm, but I can assure you that they're doing diligent work.
Great.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Keeley, I have one question. And maybe this is how we've always done it in the past. So we are projecting, so we need to make sure this item is in, because this says budgeted FY19 funds. So we won't approve a budget, but we are forecasting FY19 funds.
Right.
I'm sure we've always done it, but
Yes. I don't think that's going to be an issue because by law, we have to have an audit.
Correct.
And this
Okay,
is
I
a
just-
reasonable sum of money as determined by the committee. And if we don't do it now, we're not going to be in a position for them to hit the deck, when we're ready for them to start doing the audit.
And according to the county budget, from what I was able to pull of the 448 pages, I didn't get through all of them, it does say that an additional funding is provided for shared services to support the audit contract at $115,307. So that is actually money they give to us to pay them back. No? I don't know.
It's included in our local transfer money. They break it out as a separate appropriation. But the appropriation they have plus the shared service appropriation equal the total appropriation approved for local funds on the
I can
operating
ask
side.
more about, if that's additional money, I'm trying to find every 115,000 we can find. So, thank you. I'll
Okay. Any
follow
other
up.
questions for Mr. Fulmer?
And just for y'all's benefit, as far as the 19 budget, this is $4,500 less than we paid in FY18. So.
Good job.
Yes.
All right, this will be back to us for action on the next agenda. 9.02, approve the purchase of single-year subscription of the Northwest Evaluation Association, measures of academic progress, mathematics growth assessment for all students in grades 3 to 8 at a cost of $113,188 using budgeted FY19 funds. And Ms. Hazard, this is FY19 funds as well. Now, this item, we have been asked to consider moving it to action, because if this were to be approved, my understanding is we'll have access to these assessments for the remainder of this year at absolutely no cost. So that would be a benefit. Dr. Chase, did you have any comments on this?
I did. I just wanted to say what an excellent job whoever wrote up this agenda item did. It was like every possible question I could have was answered, and they did a fabulous job, and I'm in favor of moving this item to action today.
Okay.
Second?
I just had one.
Well, we can have discussion. Okay. Well, let's.
You already seconded it?
Okay, but let's take the vote on moving it to action, then we can have discussion, okay? So the motion is to move this item to action for a decision this evening. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, now, we need to get a motion. Do we have a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Dr. Chase?
Second?
Second by Ms. Egan. Now, discussion, Ms. Young.
I just wanted to ask a question. It says that, I still had a question. Improving equity and access to middle school mathematics courses for all students. I wasn't sure how they were going to improve the equity. How were you going to how are you going to improve the equity? Like how are you going to measure the improvement of the equity?
Dr. Strike will answer that question.
Good evening. I'll take a shot at that. So there's been a lot of discussion, as we know, with our weighted credit, et cetera. So when you think about the process that we use to place our 5th grade math students for 6th grade, we have used a process that involves SOL scores, 3rd, 4th, 5th, a teacher-written or curriculum-written, non-normed assessment in the past, and the ARDT. The ARDT is no longer available to us. It was discontinued. So we are really looking at changing our math placement for 6th grade, and the math growth assessment looks at students' instructional level versus mastery level. So placing students based on their instructional level can open up opportunities for lots of students versus where they mastered something in the other previous assessments.
Madam Chair, can I ask a real quick
Yes, of
follow-up
course.
question to that? So are you saying that they're no longer going to take that 3rd grade SOL and place these students? Yes! Yes!
So
this has been an issue for as long as I've been on this board, especially with some of my constituents. They've been the most vocal from what I can remember. So thank you for doing this.
So it's not just me, and it's not just learning and organizational development. We had all of our principals involved in this at the middle school level and elementary school level, your math specialist involved in this, and then your teacher leaders. And so we do look back at the 4th and 5th grade SOLs. However, if we use this new MAP growth assessment, because it's a computer adaptive test, it looks at student learning needs and where to properly place students. So it's something that's more accurate for all of our students going into the 6th grade.
So the reason why I'm mentioning this, and I heard what you said, but we've had this conversation before where the questions that were created are created by certain individuals with the thought process of how they think. And the population of individuals that are taking the test that are minorities or Hispanics, they think different. And so when they get the questions, they are thinking and answering the questions based on how they were raised or how they were thought, or so you see where I'm going with this.
Yes.
So when you talk about equity, we just got to be a little bit careful what we're saying.
So I'm going to add one other piece.
Sure.
The teachers are putting together, along with Kim Hayden and Kathleen Stobier, who came tonight, and they may be able to further elaborate on this if you still have questions. But we are also using a rubric. So one of the conversations that we've had in numerous discussions is the idea of using qualitative data, grit, and of course to look at what you're referring to as test bias too. So if we have good relationships with our kids and we know our students, that becomes part of the whole assessment criteria that we use for 6th grade math placement. And I recall in particular a conversation between an elementary principal and a middle school principal about the fact that this year we have to, and going forward, we really have to make sure that we find a process to have those conversations so we're not leaving students out.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Thank you. Any other questions? No? All in favor of the motion to approve the purchase of this subscription, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That brings us to the next information item, and we're not being requested to act on this tonight, is to approve the purchase in the amount of $125,000 from budgeted FY18 funds for 500 Chromebooks from Atronica Computers, Inc. for teachers attending the June 2018 Teaching and Learning Summit. Are there any questions about this item? No? This will be coming back to us at the next meeting for action. If anyone has any questions or anything comes up between now and the meeting, please send them to Dr. Benson. 9.04, approve the award of a construction contract to Mack Industries of Fairplay, South Carolina, on the amount of $415,000 using FY17 carry-forward funds and school capital reserve funds for the wastewater treatment facility replacement project at Hartwood Elementary School. This item had been approved by the board previously. It had been budgeted for $700,000, but apparently the low bidder came in at $415,000, which is a significant savings. We're being asked to approve this at the next meeting. There's no urgency on this because they can't get started right away anyway. Okay, any questions? Dr. Chase?
So do we feel like they'll be able to do a adequate job at this cost?
Yes, ma'am. We do. We do certainly have concerns when there's a bid. The original construction estimate of that $700,000 was $560,000 from the project cost. So that's roughly $140-some thousand difference. The next second bidder was at $558,000. So almost right where we estimated, where we thought the estimates. So the big difference was the cost of the actual package plant, the sewer package plant, and where it's coming from. This particular firm, they make it themselves, where the other contractors were procuring it from a separate vendor. So we were concerned that there was a difference in the price. We met with the contractor along with our consultant engineers. We contacted many of their references, as well as past projects that they've been involved in. We have some concerns with quality that had come to our attention third hand, and so we tried to follow up on those, and we're still doing that as we speak. So, but at the end of the day, we do feel this contractor can perform the job. He has a track record. It's not a fly-by-night company. It's not a small. It's a fairly large company, national company. So we do. We feel.
I have a question. I have a follow-up question. So, if you still have any concerns, perhaps may we put it out for a rebid to ensure that the treatment project is monitored and that we have a guarantee that the work completed successfully and that the technical components of this project are actually completed successfully?
Yes, ma'am. So let me assure the board that we'll certainly have proper oversight on the project. And in fact, our antennas are up. We have a little bit more sensitivity to it because of some of these allegations and because of our concerns. So we are ramping up our oversight. So first, let me assure you that. To answer your second question, can we resolicit? If it's the will of the board, we could certainly cancel the solicitation. We have that right to cancel it without cause. And we could go back and resolicit it. Now, there's not enough time, in my opinion, to try to do that this year and meet the timelines associated with the project. So if the board would like to pursue that and maybe strengthen our technical specifications, not sure we can, but we can certainly look into that. We would have to do the project next year.
Mr. Hand, did you not just assure us that this contractor was capable of doing it and that you have confidence in this contractor?
Yes, ma'am.
So why would we go out and rebid and ask somebody to charge us more money?
I wouldn't recommend that.
Okay, thank you.
I'll
accept that recommendation.
May I also ask what we plan on doing with the savings?
Well, that's not a question for Mr. Rand. That's a question for the board. I mean, he can have his wish list, but this board makes those decisions, so that would be coming back to us.
Maybe like a locker bay at North Stafford.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Horan, I just want to
thank you.
Mr. Horan, I just want to take the opportunity to thank you for the transparency. It would have been very easy to not even mention some of these concerns, but just being forthright with those and just keeping us abreast is much appreciated.
Yes, ma'am.
And if I could just make a final comment on that too. We have 2 weeks if something changes between now and when this comes for action. I know you will bring it to us.
correct?
Absolutely. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Any other questions for Noel? All right.
Thank
That
you.
brings us to the announcement of upcoming meetings. The next regular school board meeting is on March 27th at 7:00 p.m. here in the school board chambers, but we will be at the Board of Supervisors meeting on Tuesday, March 20th at 4:30 p.m. when we will be presenting the school board's budget. I certainly hope that all our members will be able to be there as we make that presentation, and our supporters are welcome to come as well. We encourage you, as my colleagues have mentioned during our comment period. Mr. McOsker, do you have a motion to go into closed session?
Yes, I do. I move that the Stafford County School Board convene a closed meeting to discuss and consider personal matters pursuant to the personnel exemption at Section 2-237-11A1 Code of Virginia.
Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Egan? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're in closed session. No break, no excuses.
You're not at home.